Hello everyone. First of all, I want to thank everyone for the feedback and for 450 subscribers and counting. It's taken me much longer than I would like to get this out, but I'm pleased to say, hey, it's finally here, and with this year marking the 40th anniversary of Zelda, and presumably more to come from that. I know that they're working really hard on the movie at Sony, so I thought I'd take the opportunity to talk about one of my favorite installments of franchise as I'm nearing completion of my latest playthrough of it, thanks to the Switch 2, Gamecube Classics release, and further evidence that the Big N has not fallen from grace and the console has not become another Wii U, even as someone who likes the latter system. So, here, among the many others I played, is why Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker is my favorite GameCube game, so let's begin. Let's start with the most obvious, most noticeable thing people saw about the game, especially when it got formally revealed in the 2000s. The graphic style. I mean, while a lot of purists, especially those who are coming off the excellent Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, cried foul at such a departure, it was the first time I saw that kind of discourse around presentation and will not be the last. I mean, there was just so many swaths of the public unable and willing to look past and their registered complaints they may not have been social platforms to the degree we have now, but they went at every avenue they could, including online forums and just sending letters to the editors of all these game publications, at the time. However, I was one of the people who actually went against that tide, and wouldn't you know it, I was one of the people who actually he has been vindicated by that with not only being highly influential in its own right with this style, but the simple realization that stylized graphics tend to age much more slowly than realistic ones, as if to say, oh, it's beautiful. Multiple other installments actually did use very new cell shading after that, both in and out of the franchise, and on top of the continued parallels with the from Tolkien's fantasy novels and the Legend of Count Excalibur, which I'll touch on more in this video, also adds the layer of being the first time I felt like I was playing a Studio Ghibli movie, and it would not be the last either. I mean, not just ones that just come to the States at the time, like Spirited Away and Prisoner Mononoke, but also saw parallels of other works such as Nausicaa, The Valley of the Wind, and Castle in the Sky, and even when Miyazaki was working on Lupin the Third, which culminated in the Castle Cagliostro movie as well. So there's definitely more than one person and almost pulling a critic and saying in hindsight, oh, it's beautiful. And there will be other points as I intend to hit. It's just one of my 5-point explanation for this why I love this game so much. As I know, as I've noted, it can often be tricky as a franchise continues to go on for the years to add new layers to old mechanics, but I think they've done a fantastic job here, as has been the case with other her titles. We'll get into one in specific in the next points, but as you can see, it was the first time where we had full control of the camera in a 3D installment, for starters. I know it seems kind of quaint nowadays where so many games have that level of control, but keep in mind, I mean, this was when and the and this kind of stuff was still relatively new, and also how it did interesting things with the inventory. Of course, the sword, herd, and the shield are mapped to like the B button and the R button respectively. But the way you were able to use different combinations of inventory as you got further in the game was quite interesting, and also just the way they designed the dungeons, and it can actually be quite effective. How giving you more than one way to solve a problem. Um, sure, there are times where you had to be in specific spots and do specific things in order to progress. As, but I definitely find it amusing how like when I read a strategy guide that shows like you glide across the deku leaf, but I already used one of my companions to get that boost instead. And I mean, just the ways you can weigh down like a switch that has to be pressed as in order to open up a chest, and also how certain elements can be like how bombs are not just used for combat, but they can also with finding secrets, it's clearing out paths, and this may not be an installment where you can and actually attack someone with the Kukos, but I also like how certain elements of story also play out. Like you really think a pirate crew would pay a king's ransom for the bombs? Nope, they would leave. They would steal them. Um, have one of the crewmates. He'd do like a challenge for them, swinging on rope lanterns like a medieval fantasy viewing Spider-Man, and but also leave the shopkeep bound and gagged head in his own store, or and also with the Forsaken Fortress first playthrough, you have to work your way up without your sword because it lands the opposite place, and definitely helped with stealth mechanics. And sure, it may not be as complex as other titles, but you obviously can't always go in noisy. In fact, actually, until we fairly recently realized that the torches and the lanterns some of the enemies hold are basically like the equivalent of like an MGS with the line of sight on your mini map. So, but reaching the top of the tower and reclaiming the blade for the first time is still a satisfying moment to this day. Hmm. One of the biggest benefits of these games has been the effective use of setting and how they've been able to have different takes on how it's used. I mean, with many games taking place is on land, some of them, like Skyward Sword and Tears of the Kingdom, having sections in the air here, and this one, it's one of its most recognizable features is taking place on water for much of the exploration, and even before even factoring in like the in-universe reason and about how the much of the kingdom was now quite literally underwater, or it definitely taught me a lot of things about how to explore a map that's laid out on a 7x7 grid with each space to find secrets. It's be they a chest of rupees or shards of Triforce, or being with letters A through G and numbers 1 through 7, and even like just like feeding like a fish who will filling up new section of your map as well, and even how to read a compass to see the direction of the wind you need to wake. I'll talk on this more in the next section, but it is honestly incredible to me how this 20 plus year old GameCube game nearing 25 next year in Japan, the year after that in the States, Hyrule willing, has better and more well thought out sailing mechanics than Skull and Bones did for a so called quadruple A title. Count on that. It took me a bit to realize this initially, but as more and more time has passed, I actually really appreciate how the digital Wind Waker itself is styled something like a conductor's wand when you're conducting an orchestra, which was intentional to my knowledge. It has a similar function in terms of mechanics to the Ocarina and Ocarina of Time Majora's Mask, but it works a different way. It can be something as simple as like changing the direction of the wind to where you need to sail next, to actually helping solve puzzles in certain dungeons. It definitely was very interesting how you're able to move statues whose with the command melody, and in some cases take control of your allies to reach an area or throw a switch in the dungeon I'm on a current playthrough, that being the Earth Temple this time. And on top of that, the French has been known for its beloved themes of music, and on top of remixing a lot of key fanfares, I also enjoy how it's got a lot of its own unique melodies, and how different instruments have been used in different sections of great effect. Dragonless Island has a particular great use of things like castanets, pan flutes, and stringed instruments. With the Forest Haven, it's clear that fiddles are a key one there. However, strings, things that brings melody, as it were. And I've actually seen performances a long time ago done through Play a Video Game Symphony, which I actually prefer over Video Games Live, personally, and there's a very vivid memory where a cosplayer who was dressed as Virgil Lane, complete with the charm that was being used to keep contact, actually won on like a Wii and $250, so that's another very strong memory linked to this music. And overall, all these elements help tie together into what is arguably the point that encapsulates all of what I've mentioned thus far. Though at the time, many people were skeptical about how the game would pull off its comeback, as this was the first mainline Zelda console installment that had been in 3 years. Here's not counting in handheld adventures such as the DX port of Link's Awakening on Game Boy Color, as well as Oracle of Ages and Seasons in 2001. And they ended up being pleasantly surprised as when the game ended up not only being good, but in fact excellent. It still maintains a sizable amount of enthusiasm to this day, and while they weren't the hugest sellers in either the digital release or the HD version on the Wii U, they were, however, still not bad based on the install bases where by my accounts, at least a tenth of each system's install base has the game, and I'm also quite pleased that I'm not the only one who's chosen to revisit their favorite retro titles over doom scrolling these days, as people have posted online. And with that in mind, the storyline was definitely tied in its own way to the events of both Ocarina and Majora's Mask, where, albeit in different ways, is with many of the characters that we encounter her being descendants of the ones in those titles. Much like how Tolkien's novels and The Legend of King Arthur and Excalibur have been reimagined many, many times over the years, and they will likely be doing so again many, many more. Or it's always interesting to me to see which titles try to do with the material, in terms of gameplay, story, and presentation, and that we have a sizable amount of new players who wasted no time in trying the game on Switch 2 as part of Gamecube Classics, and in my case, Party Night 2003, which was never the right call to place it alongside F-Zero, GX, and Soul Calibur 2 as the first three titles to come to the system, and as it were, the proverbial carrot on the end of the stick to get me to opt into the system's ecosystem, and I'd say it's working, and as I may not have gotten as far as I wanted to on my latest playthrough, but I definitely was able to get more than enough since I started the active planning to talk about this game I'm over a month ago. My first playthrough heard it on the weekend of my birthday, and to this day, even though it may not be my favorite Zelda title anymore, even my all-time favorite game anymore, it still remains an easy top 5, top 10 installment of the canonical whole games, not counting in spin-offs that are considered to be apocryphal, but it still remains my favorite GameCube game to this day. It is the one I have revisited the most out of the system's library, and I'm also glad that they let slip that its presence on GameCube Classics will not preclude an HD version coming to Switch family, which I think could work. I'm not sure how much it will actually such a thing will cost, whether they'll just do it individually, or like do a Metroid Prime, or do like a twin pack, like I have the Mario Galaxy duology and the first two Pikmin games. But I definitely could see stuff having to be reworked, because there's some major can't access and Switch 2 ports, and the sunset of the Amiiverse means you have to do different things, and even the version I've got for Wii U as well. I might still have my old GameCube version knocking around someplace. But for other elements, I could see an option for having gyro aiming for the Joy-Con, which would make it a little bit easier to solve certain puzzles that require you to position your item in a specific way, whether it's like the bow and arrows, the boomerang, the grapple, and now the mirror shield, which I just acquired. That being the case, it is as a game that I will never pass up a chance to get engrossed and spoiled at all. And with that in mind, I definitely have other games I will be addressing this year here, including other candidates that I did not end up choosing for this video. Other topics I'm open to experimenting with, so I am still had to think even harder about what I would do if I reach 500 subs. So, anyway, that'll be all for now. And I will see you all again soon. So, take care, everyone.